Hello everybody, it's vanburman here. Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Final Fantasy Ultimania archive, which I have in front of us here. It's volume 2, so Final Fantasy 7, 8 and 9. There's one volume for the first 1 to 6, and then volume 3 is 10 to 15, I think. Or it might be 14, not sure. But yeah, so effectively, this is the one that I decided to get, and probably because it's the three that I am most interested in out of all of them, I would say, on balance. And it's something that I've seen quoted here, there, and abouts, and I thought it would be quite nice to tie in with the Final Fantasy 7 playthroughs that I'm doing at the moment. And I've gone through and picked out some key bits I want to talk about. I'm not going to go through cover to cover on the Final Fantasy 7 bits, but I will visit some of the interesting tidbits that I found and that I wanted to talk about. So hopefully I can cover everything and remember what I wanted to say. That might be a start. So yes, this is it. This is one of the first ones. So there's lots of really interesting little bits in here, stuff that I didn't even know was existed or was around and that kind of thing. Probably because I imagine this book's from America. I probably should say that some stuff was just not released in the UK, almost certainly. So that will play part of it. So these are the different versions of the Final Fantasy 7 ones that came out. I didn't realize that we had a special Advent Children style one here with the full art discs. That's quite cool. I had the Advent Children one with the Final Fantasy 13 demo from, I had to buy that from Japan, but still, that had English, the English voices and subtitles on there anyway. So yeah, that was just one of the interesting bits that was on there. So that one came out in 2005, and then we also have this Final Fantasy 25th anniversary Ultimate box down here, which is obviously limited edition on the eStore. So once again, didn't know that came out. I presume that's for, it does say PlayStation, so I presume that's for the original PlayStation, but released in 2012, which is what game? Why were we there? I don't know. 2012. I don't think anything interesting happened there. The World Cup. I don't remember anything else. So yeah, but just thought I would share that. There's some interesting bits on the art side of thing, like the traditional Japanese art, but didn't really want to talk about that per se. For each of the games, I presume they do this for the other games in the other archives, whatever they're called, books. We have the family tree, sort of family tree, but how all the characters link together. There's a big one that Resident Evil did a similar sort of thing, or Capcom did a similar sort of thing for Resident Evil. Bit more in depth than here, but I guess it just helps show all of the main players in the game, and just sort of what relationships they had to each other, which is quite interesting, I suppose. I hadn't realised that Vincent and Elena were necessarily. Oh no, it's Vincent and the Turks, isn't it? They're affiliated. So yeah, there's not actually much to say on that one. I just thought it was quite neat, so I wanted to share that. And that's not to say that there's stuff in here that isn't neat that I'm not going to share, because there's lots of really cool stuff, and I would recommend, if you're really interested in this kind of thing, going out and actually getting the books. So what was the interesting thing about this? So this particular bit, mainly I was interested in the focus on this page here, which is the initial designs, character designs. And we see that a little bit throughout the book in terms of, not all of them are very interesting, but there's a couple of characters. Cloud is one, Barrett's another one, which we'll get to in a little bit, that just shows some stuff that's a little bit different to what we ended up with, I suppose. So blade held to back with a magnet, that I think is pretty cool. It's not something that is ever really justified, I suppose. It's that whole thing, isn't it, of having the sword on the back, and actually how impractical it is to have it like that for quick use. But yeah, I'm not sure a magnet would necessarily be all that easy, especially when you consider how heavy the sword is. But if you look, the first sort of drawing of Cloud was I guess what you'd call very similar to the soldier sword, but without the chain. some very heavily strong Kingdom Hearts vibes going on in this one. But as you can see, his temporary or short name was Magic Swordsman Cloud. So I guess like they were sort of, as it says here, it says in this little box down here, they were going for sort of like a magic knight, effectively, which I think is quite cool. And I guess because of how they developed the materia system, they're all sort of magic wielding people, and Cloud is quite a big user of materia, so I guess that all links in together. And then we also had the one here with the, which I really like actually, the Buster Blade, but with the like handguard type of thing, which would probably make it a little bit more practical if he was going to use it as well, even two-handed. But yeah, and then obviously this one over here, initial design number 2, is actually quite close to what we ended up with. But yeah, just some of the detail that was thought and gone into it is really impressive actually. Particularly when we look at some of the bits right at the end. When I was looking through this, I was thinking, like there was some really interesting bits that I found that sort of flies in the face of some of this, really. But I'll get into that anyway. Keeping you all in suspenders for the reveals. Right. These did have a meaning at some point with the colours of the bits of the tabs, but they don't now. So I don't know if it's just me, but I don't actually remember this scene where Barrett takes Marlene into the Church of the Flowers. Is that like at the end of the game? Is that why I don't remember it? But anyway, that was an interesting bit. I'm sure it probably is in there, but yeah, just a cool bit. So now we've got the initial designs of Barrett, and they sort of went a little bit round the block with this about how they were going to have him fight. It seems like they'd always decided that he was going to have a gun arm and he's going to have a beard. But yeah, there was some talk in the book about trying to making him shorter. They also were going to call him Blow, which is interesting. Gunner Blow was his name. And he was going to have a secondary gun as well. So not just a gun arm, also use a gun, which would have probably been a little bit overkill, I suppose. But yeah, they seem to have been fairly consistent with the design of him as they went through. And obviously they like to do the whole like Japanese thing of doing blood types and heights and birthdays and that kind of thing. I actually didn't realise that Barrett was quite as old as he is. 35, I say old, not really that old, but you know, particularly compared to the rest of the cast, so to speak. But yeah, just interesting, worth noting, I think. And I also put one on this page. Why did I put one on this page for? What's so cool about the Forbidden Date? Yeah, where because I've never actually seen this or played had this outcome in the actual game. But around Cloud, when him and Cloud go on the Golden Saucer date, I knew that happened, obviously, or could happen. Sorry, but he talks about that he might like Marlene, which is a little bit strange because she's a very young girl. So and Barry gets a bit upset about that, but not for the reason you might think. I don't think there's anything from Red that I found particularly helpful or that I wanted to talk about. Vincent, yes, there are some interesting bits on Vincent, but where was I? Oh yeah, so we've got some of the initial concepts for Yuffie. She was a little bit different, not too different, but there's talk about her in the Final Fantasy, well, whatever it was called, the fighting game. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but it's there. And yeah, the fact that there was that character model came over, but very different. And then there was the one about, so this memorable scenes bit here. Once again, never had Yuffie on the in that scene either, but that she kisses Cloud on the Ferris wheel, which I think is quite funny. And then I totally forgot about the bit in I think it's in the North, is it in the North Crater where it is? Where Yuffie doesn't, if you don't have Yuffie in your party, she doesn't give you the materia from the other path. Which is, yeah, quite interesting. Yuffie's actually a really interesting character, and I'm not 100% sold on how they used her in Crisis Core. I get that they sort of wanted there to be those pre-existing relationships there. Yuffie's someone that already exists and all the rest of it. But I felt that that was perhaps a bit too far in the grand scheme of things. Don't have a problem with it per se in the actual game, but when you look at everything holistically, it's probably, a little bit of a stretch for such a little girl to be that involved in soldier business, I would suggest. But anyway, that's just me. So that's the Yuffie side. I think we've got Vincent now. Not anything on there that I particularly wanted to mention. However, there is some really interesting stuff on here, which is very cool. So, the name, or his name was always Vincent. I don't think they don't have a different name for him. But the idea was that he was going to be like a horror-based character, which sort of makes sense if you think about his limit breaks. So you've got like the Death Gigas, the Hellmaster, Chaos. Is it Galleon Beast? Is that how you pronounce it? So that would make a lot of sense. And him having a scythe would also have been really cool as well. I think there was a big thing about guns and dead stuff at the time, probably like GoldenEye and that sort of stuff. I don't know, making that up. But yeah, I think that would have been cool. So I will read this out word for word. At first, Vincent was intended to be a horror researcher who loved ghosts and evil spirits. As a result, the initial macabre design included a scythe befitting the Grim Reaper. Vincent's slumber inside the manor may be left over from such a concept. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is kind of random, I suppose, in a way. I would have quite liked it. I quite like how Vincent's story is. I don't necessarily really have much of a problem with it. I think it's quite good that that's quite intertwined in the whole lore, and it obviously helps with Sephiroth's backstory as well. Although, although, just there. So, very, very cool. We have Sid, the proper version of Sid, not the castrated one that is in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And there was something on here that, I can't remember what bit it was. I clearly have put the post-it down. It might have been for one of the quotes, I think. Oh, yes. No, I remember now. So, this ship gonna save the planet, huh? Ain't that gonna be just a little tough? Oh, man, that went straight to my heart. And that's when Barrett recommends Cloud to be their leader. And I forgot that actually they did pick Sid to be the leader of the group because he's obviously a captain and all the rest of it. No way. I've just noticed that. Why has he got his cigarettes in his goggles? Why just not in one of his big pockets that he's got? As if I've never noticed that before. That's crazy. Okay. It's just quite funny. So I totally forgot, basically. And I think most of this is just, me forgetting little tidbits and then being like, that's really interesting, actually. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, and hopefully it might be the same for you guys as well, who might be interested in such things. And I think we have to go quite far for the next one. I think we do. So there's obviously other stuff on other characters, but nothing was really too revolutionary. So the big thing here was, I mean, I love some of the stuff that they did with some of the designs and the sort of artwork for the different areas and whatnot. I think it's all really detailed, so I really wanted to show that to you in this. So they actually, is this the one where... I'm trying to have a think if it's on this page or if it's on... Oh, no, it's on the last page. I actually wasn't going to show you this, but they actually had the old Seven Heaven design was reused for the Shinra bar in Lower Junon, which is, I think, an interesting fact. And the one I wanted to... Actually, yes, the one I wanted to show you is that Midgar wasn't originally designed to be called Midgar. It was originally designed as Mako City Zamar. Although, actually, if you look in... I don't know if this is a typo, but it says Zamal in the actual text in the book. So one of those two is wrong. But nevertheless, a cool little tidbit. And I really like the wireframe diagrams, and I'm glad that they use that for in the game, showing the train journey around the plates. But yeah. That one I think is pretty cool. I don't know which one's next. One of these is next. It's difficult from this angle to tell. I think that's too far back. Is it this one? I should have done them staggered, really, shouldn't I? And when will I learn? It's my first time doing a book review, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of slack. Okay, yeah, so we're on to more of the... This is what they call... This is the extra concept portion of the book. So there's a lot of either development tidbits or whole fundamental story arc changes, some of which I wanted to share because they're very, very interesting. So I don't think there was anything too major on here in terms of anything being changed per se, but I really like all of the detail that's gone into all the different summons. They're, one of my favorite aspects of the battle system in the game and all the rest of it. And yeah, it's just some really cool art in here, like all of the CGI models for the Knights of the Round, and obviously Arthur with Excalibur. There's also like a whole little bit on Odin as well. Where's Odin? Oh, Odin's on the next one, yeah. Like storyboards for the summons. It's all just really cool stuff. And then they've got ones for the limit breaks as well. Decided not to share any of that with you today, but yeah, it's all interesting. Oh, where was the other one I had? Oh no, it's not there. Oh, we've got lots in a row here. Oh, okay, yes, it was this one. And what was the interesting bit about here? So I quite like all the different iterations of the logo that they went through. Lots to use for other things. Mainly, where are we going to put Meteor? Seems to be the big one in there. And I think there was one for something I wanted to show. No, I can't work out what it was. Oh, that's right. So I mentioned in one of my episodes for the remake about the nail bat. So there is the thing where it says as many nails as possible, which is just quite cool. So we've got many now coming up because these are, like I say, these are all concept stuff, really interesting bits. So a lot of unused stuff. So extra friends for Marlene, some sort of group or interaction throughout the game. An enemy soldier as well that they didn't end up using, concept art. And then another sort of like big potentially super boss, not certain, the Onyx Dragon, which it says here that they use as a prototype for the Ultima weapon, which once again is pretty neat. And then 2 unused limit breaks as well. One for Aerith called Maiden's Whisper, and one for Barrett called Paralyzer. And I think it's like quite good. Like I really like the fact that it's like camera goes behind Barrett, closes in on the bullets, that kind of thing. Detonates above the enemy and smoke scatters, and then they end up paralyzed, right? Which is pretty decent. What's the Maiden's Whisper? Dash back, disappears. Camera follows Aerith. Aerith warps next to the selected character. Beside the character, she whispers to them, and then Aerith warps away. The character's attack goes up. Oh, okay. So she is like literally just whispering into them, and then each character has like a different reaction depending on who she used it on. That'd have been pretty neat in reality. And now this stuff over here is like some of the bits I was talking about earlier, like with the sprites. It was originally going to be, or they originally developed it with sprites, and obviously all the tiles and stuff. And yes. Oh, I'm sorry, but it's video time. Oh dear. I might leave that bit in, just for fun. Where was I? So they actually had Locke from Final Fantasy VI in the development of it when they were coming up with the areas. That's what originally it may have looked like. Probably, I'd imagine that's like pre-PlayStation 1 or something. Not certain. Oh, sprite work instead of polygons. Yep. And then Nibelheim being like really looking proper janky in there without all the textures and everything else added onto it. But you could still see what they were going for in that part. And it wasn't called Nibelheim, it was called Ulheim. So decided to make a bit of a change in there. And then also the different sort of styles they wanted to go through for the for the battle screens. So you've got like the zoomed in side view, which is, I don't know, I think like it's quite cool. They don't really mix things up until for some, you know, apart from for some special fights and that kind of thing, where you had like enemies of bigger scale and that kind of stuff. But it's very interesting to see the concept of how they approach the sort of side, well, we now call it the side view battle system, don't we? But it could be rear view as well. And I don't think there's too much in here about the early thing of the game map. I think everything's relatively... Oh, volcano region. I don't think there is that, is there? Northern Cave was always going to be part of it. Obviously the Cetra Ruins, Lost Woods. So yeah, a lot of stuff did carry over from initial concept, which is quite nice. And yes, so this is just some of the tech demo stuff for Final Fantasy VII for the battle systems and that kind of thing, which I just think is really cool. Like it looks, well, I'll say it looks fairly similar to how the game actually ended up being. So I didn't realise it was. Obviously, it makes sense. 1996 Tokyo Game Show, which is cool. And they took some of the old Final Fantasy characters to use as placeholders for the battle system. Very, very neat indeed. There is a lot of stuff here on the sort of documentation that's been written up, but I haven't spent too much time reading through this, I must admit. So there's some stuff here about how they might have done or rechanged the materia system effectively. A little bit more convoluted than how it ended up, I think. Oh, actually, I think probably how it ended up is better than some of the stuff in here. But it was clearly a development process. The bit that I do really want to focus on, and this is the last bit I have flagged because this is right at the end of the Final Fantasy VII chapter, but it's this bit here, which is the early character relationship chart. And I'm hoping that you can see it okay on the video. If you can't, that's going to be really disappointing. But it shows, obviously, when Barrett was called Blow, right? So that's quite interesting. Cloud was still Cloud. But if you look in this line here, there was a suggestion of Tifa being siblings with Sephiroth. So being Sephiroth's daughter. And Tifa being pursued by Shinra, i.e. the Turks. And then, so in a way, Tifa is kind of like Aerith in this. But she has guardians who protect her from the Shinra 3. So yeah, so it's quite interesting in terms of that work, and then comrades from Sephiroth over, which I guess is like the role that Zack fulfilled, all trying to get to effectively the Promised Land, and Cloud and Sephiroth being best friends, which once again Zack kind of fulfilled as well. I think that's it for this video. Being kicked out of the studio, but thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little tidbits. Feel free to leave any comments down below if there's anything that particularly caught your eye. I'd be more than interested to hear that. And yeah, I will see you all in the next one. I'd be happy to do Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX from here as well, if that's something that is of interest. Okay, try for now.